Well, thank you so much to Joel Guy for that weather update. We get straight into your sport news now, where UFC middleweight champion Dricus Du Plessis has revealed his strategy to halt Khamzat Chimaev when they meet at the UFC 319 fight night in Chicago on Saturday. Now, with both men known for finishing fights, their clash at the UFC 319 promises to be one of the year's most explosive matchups. Now, to talk about this, we've roped in our mixed martial arts analyst. Once again, it's the power lady, Shana Power. A very good morning to you, Shana. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and thank you so much for your patience. I know you logged in for this interview very, very early. Let's look at the different styles of these two fighters on the floor. Can Dricus beat Khamzat on the floor where he is extremely strong? Let's speak to that element.
Yes, absolutely. I think Dricus can beat Khamzat. There hasn't been much seen other than his fight with Sean Strickland and Adesanya, where he finished later on. So yes, I think Dricus is highly experienced on the ground. Just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean that he's not going to be able to hold his own and potentially finish the fight himself on the ground.
And something else that everyone seems to be giving Dricus the edge in this fight is if it lasts longer than the first two rounds. I want to get your thoughts on that, Shana.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the experience in the cage, Dricus definitely builds as he goes later into the rounds, where if you look at Khamzat, he kind of comes up quite explosive. So this has been the whole thing about the fights is it going to be finished early? It's going to be this explosive kind of start, and then does it become more strategic as the fight progresses later on? So yeah, Khamzat hasn't had as many rounds. In fact, he's never been into championship rounds, and this is what makes a champion, is that Dricus has gone the distance in two of his fights, giving him more cage time and more experience. But then Khamzat has also added more cardio to his camp this time round, so he might be, prepared to go the distance. But it's the mental edges, that how long can you stay engaged as the fight keeps going.
And that's very interesting that you mentioned that. I also want to speak to two scenarios which we could possibly see unfold. Can Dricus's defense handle the early flurry from Khamzat? And when the two fighters are on their feet, who would you say has the superior punching power?
Well, I think Dricus can handle it. Again, I think we've seen him be tested through multiple fighters. So he's definitely shown that he does take a little bit of punishment, and that's always, is Dricus going to be able to handle that? He relies on his chin quite a bit, and he relies on the recovery to keep going. So it's not always ideal to take so much punishment, but I think he can definitely handle himself as the fight progresses.
And so let's speak now, hypothetically speaking. He goes into the fight over the weekend out in the USA. He wins the fight. Does Dricus then move up a division, you think?
Well, I mean, this fight is a huge fight for Dricus. I mean, he beats Khamzat. It's a legacy-defining moment for him. Analysts are kind of saying that he could potentially move up to number one pound-for-pound fighter. So there are some fighters that are still ready to take on Dricus, but it's ultimately his decision. He has spoken about going up, but I think he wants to really stamp his authority in that division. But there is talks about him moving up later, but I don't think it'll be quite soon after this fight.
So in that instance, Shana, not quite soon after this fight, he doesn't move up a division. Who then do you think would be, or should be rather, his next opponent?
In the middleweight division, or
Yes.
in the higher division?
In his current division?
In his current division, there's quite a few guys, to be honest. But I can't even give you a name, because there's no one that, for me, Dricus has beaten all the top guys that we've all spoken about. We look at Darren Till, we look at Sean Strickland, we look at Adesanya, we look at Robert Whittaker. These are the top names that have been the top of the division, and he's beaten all of those. They are up-and-coming fighters, but no one's really landing for me. This is the fight that I've personally been waiting for the most, because this for me is a true test. And also we're all kind of going, who's going to take it, because of the early explosive fight from Khamzat into Dricus. But for me personally, I can't give you a name who would be next, because I don't know who's worthy of Dricus.
I love that. We don't know who's worthy of Dricus, and I mean he's done some amazing stuff for the sport. But I want to get your thoughts, Shana, because we speak about a lot of people being uncertain about which way it's going to go. I know you you don't dilly-dally when it comes to things like this. So, on your money, who's your money on in terms of Khamzat up against South Africa's Dricus Du Plessis? Is he maintaining this title and retaining it?
Sure, I know that I've been pretty certain on the previous fights, but I want to back Dricus on this fight, not just because he's our boy, but I just think his cage time and experience, you know, and the way that he has basically become the top MMA fighter. I was speaking about this the other day, that MMA is now a sport on its own. Obviously, it comprises of many mixed martial arts, and people normally transition from one into mixed martial arts, but for Dricus, he definitely owns it. So, you know, coming in with Khamzat, that's mostly a wrestler and grappler, I just think Dricus is the more well-rounded fighter. But this is also the excitement of MMA, is that anything can happen, and if that explosiveness happens, anyone could get knocked out, anyone could get submitted early on. But I just think Dricus' experience is going to get him through. And I think he's just so well prepared for this fight that we'll see him, you know, beating Khamzat over the weekend.
And we would certainly love to see it. Of course, it's the UFC 319 encounter taking place in Chicago out in the USA. Thank you so much to Shana Adrienne Power, always sharing her thoughts with us and her expertise. We'll see you out at the gym. That's where we'll leave it for now in terms of your sport news.